Welcome back to Jorge's House of Horrors, where real-life nightmares are scarier than fiction. I'm your host, Jorge, and today we're going to continue our journey through the Satanic Panic, with perhaps its most disturbing chapter yet. Last week we saw how Hysteria destroyed a preschool. Now we'll see how it sent 3 teenagers to prison for simply being different. Settle in, because the dark tale of small-town prejudice and judicial failure is about to begin. West Memphis, Arkansas, 1993. A quiet, deeply religious community where anything outside of the mainstream is viewed with suspicion. When the bodies of 3 8-year-old boys, Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers are discovered in a wooded area known as Robin Hood Hills, the community is desperate for answers. What they get instead is one of the most infamous miscarriages of justice in American history. On May 5th, 1993, 3 second graders went missing while riding their bikes. The next day, their bodies were found submerged in a drainage ditch, naked and hogtied with their own shoelaces. The boys had suffered multiple injuries, and police quickly declared the murders were satanic in nature. The investigation was, to put it mildly, a masterclass in what not to do. The crime scene was compromised almost immediately. With crucial evidence lost or contaminated, they just didn't care. Police had no physical evidence, no witnesses, and no obvious suspects. But they did have something else. A community primed by years of satanic panic and ready to believe the worst. As one detective later admitted, we had tunnel vision. We were looking for the boogeyman. Enter the suspects. Damien Echols, an 18-year-old with an interest in Wicca, wore black clothing, listened to Metallica, and read Stephen King novels, alongside his buddies, Jason Baldwin, 16, and Jessie Misskelley Jr, 17. Echols represented everything the conservative community feared: outsiders who rejected mainstream Christianity and embraced the dark culture. They dressed funny, they had weird hair, they didn't go to church, and that's enough to make you the devil in this area. Police zeroed in on the teens with shocking speed. Their evidence? Damien's black clothing, his collection of heavy metal posters, and journals containing teenage angst poetry. In one journal entry, Damien had written about feeling like an outcast. This was interpreted as evidence of satanic leanings rather than typical teenage alienation. The case against the teens was weak until police brought in Jessie Misskelley for questioning. Misskelley had an IQ of 72 and was known to be easily influenced. After 12 hours of interrogation, only 45 minutes of which were recorded, he confessed to witnessing Echols and Baldwin murder the boys as part of satanic ritual. His confession was riddled with factual errors. He claimed the murders occurred in the morning when they actually happened after school. He described sexual assaults that medical evidence didn't support. He mentioned the boys were tied with rope when they were actually bound with shoelaces. This coerced confession became the cornerstone of the prosecution's case. He just told them what they wanted to hear. Misskelley was tried separately, and despite recanting his confession, he was convicted and sentenced to life, plus 40 years. The joint trial of Echols and Baldwin that followed was even more troubling. With no physical evidence linking the teens to the crime, prosecutors presented expert testimony from Dale Griffiths, a self-proclaimed occult specialist with a mail-order PhD. Griffiths testified that the murders had all the hallmarks of satanic ritual, including the full moon and the calling card of the 3 victims. The prosecution's star witness, a troubled drug addict who claimed to have attended SBAT meetings with the defendants, where they discussed drinking blood and engaging in orgies. She later admitted she fabricated her entire testimony for the reward money. In a moment that would define the trial, prosecutors entered Metallica albums and Stephen King novels as evidence of the teenagers' satanic influences. Yes, they did. When a defense witness was asked if she'd ever seen Damien sacrificing animals, she replied no, but he does wear black. That response pretty much sums up the entire case. Yay, you wear black, you listen to Metallica, and you read Stephen King. Go to jail. I mean, most of us would be going to jail right now if that was the case. And just as with the McMartins, the media coverage was sensationalistic and biased. Local newspapers ran headlines like "Devil Worshippers Arrested" and "Satanic Cult Kills Children." A documentary film crew captured much of the trial for what would become the HBO documentary Paradise Lost, which I recommend you go and check out. It's fabulous. It's fantastic. It's heartbreaking. Firmly divided there in West Memphis. Many believed justice was being served, and others recognized the witch hunt unfolding before their eyes. Parents of the victims initially supported the prosecution, and they were convinced by authorities that the teenagers were responsible. One juror later admitted that "we knew they were guilty because they listened to that heavy metal music. God forbid they listen to heavy metal music. Normal kids don't listen to stuff like that." And in March 1994, both Echols and Baldwin were found guilty. Baldwin received life without a parole. Echols, portrayed as the ringleader, was sentenced to death. As they were led from the courtroom, Echols looked directly at the cameras and said, "I'm innocent. I'm being punished for crimes I didn't commit." Few believed him at the time, but the case didn't end there. The Paradise Lost documentaries brought national attention to the flaws in the case. Celebrities including Johnny Depp, Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, Peter Jackson, and Henry Rollins rallied to the cause, raising funds for new investigations and legal appeals. In 2007, new DNA testing revealed no genetic material from any of the 3 convicted teens at the crime scene. Instead, DNA consistent with Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of victim Stevie Branch, was found on the shoelaces used to bind the boys. Witnesses also came forward, placing Hobbs with the victims shortly before they disappeared. Information never presented at the trial. And after 18 years in prison, with Echols spending most of that time on death row, the West Memphis Three were offered an unusual deal: an Alford plea, which allowed them to maintain their innocence while technically pleading guilty. This legal maneuver freed them immediately while protecting the state from wrongful conviction lawsuits. Gosh, gotta cover our tails, don't we? And on August 19th, 2011, they walked out of prison as free men, though not exonerated. Echols, who had spent his entire adult life behind bars, emerged into a world that had moved on without him. They stole his life, and he went from being a teenager, and he went from having his hair dark to coming out with gray. The real killer of the 3 boys has never been brought to justice, and the case officially remains closed. The West Memphis Three revealed how the Satanic Panic had evolved from claims of ritual abuse in preschools to the criminalization of teenage nonconformity. Being different, wearing black, listening to heavy metal, practicing non-Christian spirituality was seen as evidence of evil intent. The case also exposed deep flaws in our justice system. The willingness to accept flimsy evidence when it confirms existing biases, the vulnerability of the intellectually disabled to coerced confessions, and how easily juries can be swayed by fears of satanic influence rather than actual evidence. Perhaps the most disturbing is how many similar cases may have occurred without the benefit of documentary filmmakers preserving the record. How many other innocent people were convicted during the Satanic Panic simply for being different? The Satanic Panic wasn't just about imaginary demons. It revealed the very real demons of prejudice, fear, and the human tendency to find scapegoats for society's ills. This is Jorge reminding you that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't supernatural. They're ordinary people with power and prejudice.